Okay, this is going to be a unfiltered vlog about Disney. Not only my journey with Disney and my past, present, and future, but also some of the deep stuff because I want to take you along with me on the deep parts of Disney that I have found most intriguing. And I'm going to be sharing one of the things with you that I actually had printed out here, right here, called the Walt Disney World background and philosophy, which I heard from AI is like the holy grail of our holy grail of documentation from um, some people, some Imagineers at Disney, and I'll get more into that in a bit. But one of the things I wanted to first start off with in this series is the past and the history. I wanted to share my background with Disney and maybe how it's impacted my life. First of all, I want to make something very clear that I was not a Disney kid. I didn't grow up Disney. From my research, I have seen many people who grew up Disney where they would go to the parks on a regular basis, maybe on an annual basis, or they would have every, VHS video of Disney, or they would just be immersed in Disney. I wasn't that kid. Actually, I think where I really got turned into Disney, ironically, which I didn't even think of it as a Disney film, was Toy Story, at the time Pixar Studios, and it wasn't a Disney brand yet, right? So I got into Disney. Let me rewind. The first time I went to Disney, I was about 10 years old, and I think I was like 9 turning 10. If I did the actual dates, then I would, I'll calculate and find out what those actual dates are. And I remember like little moments here or there about the rides I did and some brief moments. However, looking back, and thankfully to my dad recorded our trip with like those big Panasonic, you know, boulder weight cameras. They sat on your shoulder and it came in a big blue briefcase. I don't know if you've had one of those. I forgot the name of it, but it's definitely a Panasonic that I remember. And we would lug that thing all around the park and everywhere in our life in the 80s and 90s. But the reality is, the fact that we still have that video footage is priceless, because I was able to take that footage some years ago. I was able to convert the VHS footage and I sent it off to a company, and they digitalized it and put into MP4 format. So, however magic they use for that, they converted it, and now I have all of those family history videos in my cloud, and I can click on it. My family can click on it anytime and watch old family videos anywhere in the world on any device. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in that kind of stuff, or you need to digitalize your life like I did many years ago. I also have other videos of that on my YouTube channel where I share how to do that, how to digitalize your life. So, um, so the the when I think back and I look at the videos that I saw from what my dad recorded, one of the things that stuck out the most, I remember a little bit in my mind that I used to see I saw the fireworks. I saw the fireworks, but I wasn't sure where it was from. And from briefly what I remember, actually, when I asked my dad about a year ago, I said, "Hey, what fireworks show did we see at Disney?" And he said, "Oh, we saw the one at Epcot." And that's about correct, because later on in this journey, I'll share with you how I saw the Magic Kingdom's nighttime spectacular for the first time just a few years ago. So looking back on the videos, I was actually able to see everything that was happening. Oh, that's right. You got to go see Daphne, right? Oh, yeah. Nothing for right now. Later after Daphne. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Sorry. That was my driver asking me what the next program was for the day. And the next. Okay, so looking back on what I remember from the fireworks show, for example, was definitely Epcot, and we have proof of that in the video footage. Now, one of the looking back at the different rides that I went on, and the videos definitely help, videos and photos, but mostly videos. I remember the only photo I like really genuinely had was one of Mickey, and it's actually there's one of me is one of me and Mickey in his like studio where you could meet him in like the makeup room, and then there's one of me, my sister, and Pluto, and those were really the only photos that we had. And the reason why I remember them so well was because my dad framed them and they were on our wall consistently. But listen, even growing up, I never had this desire to go back to Disney. I never had this desire over the years after 10 years old to go back and like, oh, can we do that again? And I'd love to go back. And it wasn't even my parents' mind as well to go back there. So it was like a once in a lifetime experience, right? It was like a one off. And that was it. That was it. There wasn't anything else to it. So years and years go by, and fast forward now many years, however many years it is, here I am in Uganda, and I have to travel again, and this time I don't want to go. Okay, it's like the first like deep deep regret that I have to leave the country and I have to leave my kids behind. Well, as I was sitting for breakfast with one of my good friends, I said, she's like, why aren't you excited about going this time? There's so many people who would love to be in your shoes and love to travel. And I said, genuinely, this time, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And she said, why? I said, because I don't want to leave my kids behind. I don't want to leave my kids behind. So she said, well, why don't you take one of your kids with you? And I said, oh, that's a good idea. Why don't I try that? So I decided to take my son. And this trip, what we did was we first went to direct to the island, the Azores Islands, to San Miguel. We went there straight, and it was a really cool experience while we were on the island. One of the things we did a bunch of things. We did some trekking. We went to the little zoo that they have, fed the animals. We played basketball. It was actually the first time my son played basketball. My son fell in love with it. So we played basketball together numerous times. We went to different courts, played basketball. I mean, it was like a basketball trip. We did some other things like the play areas and all that. And we went to some arcades. And then on the way back, we stopped at the zoo in Lisbon. And it's like the main zoo in Lisbon, downtown in the city. So we did that. That was a really cool experience. It was during that part of going to the island and then to the zoo and then coming back, it was the little moments that we had along the way that just really made a big difference and made a big impact. It was like, whoa, I want to do this again, but this time I want to do it with a different child. I want to go every time I travel, I want to take a different child. And so I started this journey of doing that. I started taking every time I travel, I take one of my kids. So now here's where it comes back to Disney. I really liked taking my son on this trip, and and it was very different because we got to spend more time together one on one in a unique way. I got to hear him voice different concerns. He like the meaningful conversations we had were very different compared to like on the weekends when I'm with all my kids, and maybe they're fighting for attention, or there's a lot of different types of conversations going on. I felt like my son opened up in a different way, and this made a big impact on me. I said, you know what, I want to do this over and over again with a different child every time. Okay, so mind you, this first trip I did not go to Disneyland. Okay, it was the next trip where I decided to travel. I had to travel again, and this time I had to go back to the island. And on the way, I think it was on the way back or on the way there, I stopped at France to go to Disneyland Paris. Okay, so my daughter Delta and I'm kind of like hyping her up for Disney, yet I wasn't really that excited, but I was hyping her up because it was her first time to Disneyland. And this was actually my first time at Disneyland Paris. By the way, previously, I had only been to Walt Disney World in Orlando, again, when I was around 10 years old. So I remember us arriving, I'm hyping her up. I'm like, do you know where we are? And I don't even think my daughter knew where she was. So I remember us walking into the main gate, and I'm like, Delta, do you know where we are? Do you know where we are? And she reads the sign. She's like, Disneyland. And Now, mind you, I had never talked to my kids about Disney. They didn't even know there was rides there. They didn't know characters were there. They had no idea. They just read the sign and she was excited. So that was her first experience of Disneyland. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of every ride that we did and all that stuff, but what I want to share with you is the changing moment of my entire Disney discovery, because it kind of embodies why I started this whole vlog anyway, this Disney vlog anyway, and why I'm reading these archives is this moment right here. My daughter and I went to the nighttime spectacular at Disneyland Paris on the first night. We were actually at the park for 4 nights, the 4-day trip in Disneyland Paris, and we went to the nighttime spectacular on the first night. And when we were there, I, you know, that we didn't get VIP this time. We just, standing with everyone in general areas, and where the fireworks are going off. Of course, it's fireworks. It looks nice. Then at a moment there, I remember my daughter Delta was standing on the left side of me, and I remember looking down as she's looking up, and I see tears rolling down her face. And I look at her, I get down, I'm like, Delta, what's wrong? Why are you crying? And she's like, Daddy, it's just so beautiful. And I was like, oh, okay. So I remember coming back up, and I look around to my left and to my right, and I see other adults crying. Like, not just women. I even see men like clearing their eyes and I see women crying, and I'm like, wait a second. What is going on here? What is happening? Because I know something that's very true in marketing and sales from my years of experience with speaking and moving an audience and getting them engaged is if you can move an audience with emotion, if you can get people to cry during a presentation or a keynote speech, let me tell you, you've moved an audience. And that's very powerful. So I knew in that moment, I said, okay, something's going on here. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I wanted to find out what it was. So what I did was I said, Delta, after the show was over, I said, Delta, we're coming back to the show. We're going to come back tomorrow night. And so we did. We came back the next night, and this time I watched the show, like genuinely watched it. The previous night, I was just like watching the fireworks. I was logistically like, where are they shooting off the fireworks, and how is this happening, and how is that, I was all in the logistics. But this time I watched it with my heart, and I realized it was in that moment, in that nighttime spectacular, that Disney was so much more than just a name or a movie, a VHS tape. Disney was so much more than characters. Disney was so much more than stories. Disney was so much more than a ride. And that's when, after that nighttime spectacular, I walked away saying, I gotta figure this thing out. I gotta look into this. Like, what? Like, I think this is something I've been looking for. And it was with those words of something I've been looking for came at a pivotal time in my life, because just a few years ago, I don't want to say lost, but I was like redefining myself. And in that process, it could feel like you're lost, even though I still had my mission and I knew where I was going. But I had walked away from the industry. I decided to take a break. I took 2 years out of the industry and started some different projects, did some other ventures, had a startup, had a mastermind. I was just doing other projects, other things. And so in that time frame, I thought, like, okay, maybe this is what's been missing. Maybe this is something that I've been thinking about for some time, something that I've looked for and wanted. And okay, so let me tell you something I discovered during that process and how I've come to this point today, and then you can follow along on the journey. I wanted to give you a deep understanding in this first video of the past and the present. So One of the things that really stuck out to me about Disney at this particular time, I went to YouTube and I looked up a brief history of Disney and what Walt did. And this is the thing that really snowballed for me and got me like really on this deep dive. One of the things I heard was the way Walt Disney purchased the land in Florida, in Kissimmee, in the Orlando market, and how he purchased the land in various companies. They set up a few companies and they ended up buying all the land and then announced it to the public that they were the ones who bought all the land. Now, ironically, originally I thought Walt Disney World first uh, was the first park. I didn't know about Disneyland California. That's how much I was oblivious and ignorant to the whole Disney World. Okay, the Disney atmosphere, and let's call it a galaxy. So I didn't realize that he had done that. He had a vision. Now, what got me even more crazy about this topic was Walt didn't even see the first construction of that park. It was actually Roy, his brother, who was the first one to actually build the park and complete the park in Walt Disney World. That blew my mind even more. And one last bit that triggered me on this whole journey. Walt Disney was a broke artist with a dream and a vision. And he left his home where in Missouri, where he was raised, and left there and went to California in search for a new opportunity. He knew where he needed to go, but he was a broke and struggling artist. And I think of sometimes how many broke and struggling artists I've met over the years. People who have a dream trying to make it, but yet don't have the opportunity or don't know what to do and or fail and give up. And yet Walt tried and tried and tried so many times, various projects until he had his big breakthrough. Now, that's where I'm going to stop and leave it from there. I don't want to go too deep into all those things that I've already studied and already researched, but I wanted to give you at least a brief background about my history in the Walt Disney galaxy and how I grew up with Disney and how it wasn't a big, huge impact in my life at that time. And then how I rediscovered Disney with my daughter Delta. And now I make an effort that, like, we're all in. Like, I am all in. What do I mean by all in? Well, number one, I'm an annual pass card holder, even though I'm not always in. That's specifically, by the way, for Walt Disney World, Florida. Even though I'm not always in Florida, I'm a Walt Disney World pass card holder. I have Disney Plus. I have the Disney Visa rewards card. What else do I have? There's more coming, and there's more happening. Oh, I'm a D23 member. So as you can hear in my tonality, not only am I happy and passionate about it, but also it's very exciting, but also I'm deep into it because I believe when you're going into something, you just immerse yourself. You go all in. Just like when I moved to Uganda, I went all in. It wasn't like I dabbled and went just like a month at a time and all that stuff. No, I went all in. It's the same with this. And I truly believe that in any venture that you do, you have to go all in. You have to go deep into something. Unfortunately, today, there's a lot of surface level things. There's a lot of surface knowledge, like, whether it's scrolling on TikTok or scrolling reels and stuff like that, very surface level. You have to go deeper to extract the juice out of the fruit. Okay, you have to get as much as you can. You have to go deeper, and that's what this vlog is really all about. If you're interested in Disney, or you want to hear Disney from a business perspective, from a perspective of personal development and growth, a perspective of business, a personal perspective on how you can apply these Disney principles into your personal life and your business, then that's what this vlog is going to be about. So that's my history, that's my past and present, And if you're interested in following along on this journey, then I encourage you to follow along. And then we'll be getting deeper into different segments. The way, again, like I said, this is going to be a very unfiltered vlog. And I am going to pull out different excerpts and, different things that I find not only in this Walt Disney World background and philosophy, but I'm going to be sharing different things that I discover along the way. I'll take you on some of my trips. I'll probably share different things that I discover at the parks and so much more. So much more. But if you're interested in, discovering more about Walt Disney and how it can impact your personal life and your business, stick around, follow along, and it'll be fun. All right. See ya.